I never thought moving to an upscale neighborhood would turn into a battleground, but that's exactly what happened when I crossed paths with Karen, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. When my wife and I first moved into our dream house, we were excited. It was everything we had ever wanted: spacious rooms, a beautiful backyard, and most importantly, a private pool where we could finally unwind after long work weeks. It was the kind of place where we thought we could enjoy life peacefully. But there was one thing we didn't account for: the HOA and its tyrannical president. From the moment we met Karen, I knew she would be a problem. She greeted us the day we moved in, flashing a smile so forced that it might as well have been glued onto her face. In her perfectly ironed beige slacks and pastel cardigan, she handed us the HOA rulebook, a 300-page monstrosity that detailed everything from acceptable lawn heights to the color palette for front doors. "We like to maintain a certain standard here," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I brushed it off, thinking she was just another nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. I had no idea how far she was willing to go. At first, it was minor annoyances: a letter about our trash cans being visible from the street, another about the shade of our outdoor lights being too warm. We laughed it off, figuring Karen just needed a hobby. But when we installed the pool, everything changed. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just annoying, she was on a warpath. The first incident happened on a sunny Saturday afternoon. My wife and I were lounging by the pool, sipping iced tea and enjoying our weekend. I had just taken a dip when I heard a faint buzzing sound. It was subtle at first, almost like a distant lawnmower, but as the noise grew louder, I looked up and froze. A drone, a sleek black drone, hovered just above our fence, its tiny camera lens pointed directly at us. My wife squinted against the sunlight. Is someone recording us?" Her voice was tight with disbelief. I knew instantly who was behind it: Karen. Who else would pull a stunt like this? I grabbed my phone and started recording. The drone circled us slowly, like a predator sizing up its prey. Then, without warning, it zipped away, straight towards Karen's house. My blood boiled. Spying on us in our own backyard? That crossed a line. Fueled by anger, I marched across the street to her house. Her pristine lawn was manicured to perfection, not a blade of grass out of place. I pounded on the door, and after a moment, Karen opened it. She wore the same fake smile, but there was something else in her eye, a glint of satisfaction. "Well, hello, neighbor," she said sweetly. I held up my phone. "Is this yours?" I demanded, playing back the footage. Her smile barely faltered. "Oh, that? It's part of our HOA surveillance program. We monitor for violations." She said the last word like I was a criminal. "Violation? What kind of violations?" I snapped. Karen tilted her head, pretending to be thoughtful. "Noise complaints, unauthorized installations. You understand, of course. We can't have the neighborhood turning into a circus." My jaw clenched. "A circus? It's a pool, Karen. People have pools." She sighed dramatically. "Yes, but your pool has become a concern. The board received several complaints." I knew it was a lie. There hadn't been any loud parties or wild gatherings, just my wife and me enjoying our home. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She was interested in control. "I'm telling you now," I said, stepping closer. "Keep your drone away from my property." Her smile faded for just a second before she plastered it back on. "I'm simply enforcing the rule," she said coldly. "If you're not willing to comply, there will be consequences." I walked away, fists clenched. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next weekend, the drone returned. This time it hovered close, too close. It swooped down, buzzing right over my wife's head while she was sunbathing. I caught it on camera again and sent the footage straight to my lawyer. "This is harassment," I muttered. But Karen wasn't done. A few days later, I got a letter from the HOA, a formal complaint about our unauthorized pool activity and a $500 fine for excessive noise. It was nonsense. We hadn't done anything wrong, but Karen had the power, and she was using it. My patience wore thin. Then things escalated. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I spotted the drone again. This time, it wasn't just hovering, it was following me. I had enough. If Karen wanted a war, she was going to get one. I spent the next week preparing. I did my research, learned everything I could about drones and signal jammers. Turns out, It's not illegal to disrupt a drone signal on your own property. So I bought a military-grade signal jammer, the kind that knocks drones out of the sky. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I was ready to play dirtier. The next time the drone showed up, I was waiting. I hid the jammer behind a bush near the pool. The buzzing sound echoed through the yard as the drone arrived, its camera swiveling towards us. My wife rolled her eyes. "Again?" she muttered. I grinned. Not for long. I flipped the switch. Within seconds, the drone's signal scrambled. It jerked mid-air, wobbled, and then crash! It spiraled out of control, smacking into Karen's second-floor balcony before tumbling to the ground. My wife clapped. Bullseye! I strolled across the street, drone fragments in hand, and knocked on Karen's door. When she opened it, her face was flushed with anger. "Lose something?" I asked, holding out the broken pieces. "You can't do this," she hissed. "You'll regret it." I smiled. "Actually, I can. And if you send another drone over my property, I'll make sure it ends up in worse shape than this one." For the first time, Karen's mask slipped. She was scared. I turned and walked away, knowing that I had finally tipped the scales. But deep down, I knew the battle wasn't over. Not yet. For a few days after I sent Karen's drone crashing into her balcony, things were quiet. Too quiet. It was almost like she was licking her wounds, plotting her next move. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't on edge. Karen wasn't the type to back down easily, and I knew she wouldn't let me win without a fight. And I was right. 1 week later, I found out exactly how far she was willing to go. It was a sunny Friday afternoon, and I had just finished cleaning the pool when I noticed something strange on my front lawn. A bright orange notice flapped against the mailbox in the breeze. My stomach twisted as I pulled it off and read the words stamped across the top. HOA violation. Immediate action required. I rolled my eyes. Here we go again. According to the notice, I was being fined $1,000 for unauthorized modifications to the property. What modification? The pool had been approved, after a ridiculous amount of paperwork, I might add. But as I read further, I realized Karen had found a new angle to attack me. Installation of unauthorized surveillance equipment in violation of HOA privacy regulation. I laughed out loud. Surveillance equipment? She was referring to the signal jammer, the same one I'd used to knock her drone out of the sky. Apparently, Karen had complained to the HOA board, claiming I was disrupting the peaceful atmosphere and endangering community electronics. It was absurd. But it didn't end there. Attached to the notice was a formal hearing invitation. The HOA board wanted to discuss my multiple violations and decide whether further action, including legal steps, was necessary. Karen wasn't just trying to fine me. She wanted to make my life miserable. That was the moment I realized something. Karen wasn't going to stop until I was either bankrupt or out of the neighborhood. But I wasn't about to roll over and let her win. If she wanted a war, I was going to end it on my terms. Phase 1. Outsmart the queen bee. The first thing I did was document everything. I compiled every drone video, every letter, every ridiculous fine. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I was going to fight back with evidence. Next, I did a little digging of my own. Late one night, while scrolling through the HOA's public records, I discovered something interesting. It turned out Karen wasn't exactly following the rules herself. In fact, her backyard had a completely unapproved extension, a luxurious gazebo she had installed without any permits. I couldn't stop grinning. If Karen wanted to enforce the rules, she was about to get a taste of her own medicine. The following morning, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA against Karen's illegal gazebo. But I didn't stop there. I also sent a copy to the county zoning board, the people who could fine her thousands for unauthorized construction. By the time I finished, I felt a rush of satisfaction. Let's see how she likes it when the tables turn. Phase 2. Give her a dose of her own medicine. It didn't take long for Karen to retaliate. The day before the HOA hearing, a delivery truck pulled up in front of my house. The driver, wearing a confused expression, handed me a stack of packages, all addressed to me, all containing random, useless junk. Karen had somehow signed me up for dozens of subscription boxes, everything from pet food to adult diapers. I knew she was trying to get under my skin, but if Karen thought prank deliveries were going to make me back down, she was about to learn how wrong she was. I made a quick phone call to my tech-savvy cousin who specialized in reverse tracking. Within hours, we had traced the IP address used to place the orders right back to Karen's house. That's when I decided it was time to go nuclear. Phase 3, the final blow. The day of the HOA hearing arrived. I walked into the community center with my head held high, carrying a binder stuffed with evidence. Karen sat across from me, her lips curled into a smug smile. She thought she had already won. The HOA president, a tired-looking man in his 60s, called the meeting to order. Karen wasted no time launching into her speech. "Mr. Johnson's behavior has been unbecoming of our community," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "He's using illegal technology to disrupt the peace, and his aggressive attitude has caused multiple complaints." I let her talk. I wanted her to dig her own grave. When it was my turn to speak, I calmly laid out everything: the drone harassment, the illegal deliveries, the unapproved gazebo, and to top it off, I handed over a USB drive containing video evidence of Karen's drone violating my privacy. The room fell silent. Even the HOA board members looked uncomfortable. I could see Karen's confidence slipping with every word I said, but I wasn't done yet. I pulled out one last document: the county violation notice for her illegal gazebo. "I believe this falls under the same rules we are discussing," I said, sliding it across the table. "If I am being penalized for minor infractions, I'm sure the board will treat all violations equally, won't they?" Karen's face turned a deep shade of red. The HOA president sighed heavily. "Given the evidence presented," he said, "we have no choice but to dismiss the complaints against Mr. Johnson. Furthermore, Mrs. Patterson," he turned to Karen, his tone sharp, "you will need to remove the gazebo immediately or face escalating fines." I nearly laughed out loud at the expression on her face. As the meeting ended, I couldn't resist giving Karen a parting shot. I leaned in and whispered, "Next time, pick on someone else." She didn't respond. For the first time since we moved in, Karen was speechless. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed, life got a whole lot quieter. The drone was gone. The petty notices stopped. And every time I walked past Karen's house, I smiled as I watched the demolition crew tear down her precious gazebo. She still glares at me from time to time, but she doesn't say a word, because now she knows better. And as for my wife and me, we enjoy our pool in peace. No drones, no fines, and no Karen. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that some bullies only understand one language: payback. And trust me, I speak it fluently. For a while it seemed like I had finally won. Karen's drone antics had stopped. Her illegal gazebo was nothing but a pile of wood, and the HOA had backed off. My wife and I enjoyed our peaceful evenings by the pool, and I almost started to believe that Karen had learned her lesson. But I should have known better. Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. Behind her fake smiles and overly perfect lawn, she was plotting her next move, and this time she was going all in. The return of the Queen of Chaos. It started with small things that didn't seem connected at first. One morning I stepped outside to find my trash cans missing, completely gone. I searched the entire neighborhood and finally found them dumped in a drainage ditch 2 blocks away. I didn't have to guess who was behind it. Then came the mystery complaints. The HOA began flooding my inbox with vague accusations, excessive noise, improper landscaping, even disturbing the peace. Each complaint was anonymous, but I knew exactly who was behind them. The final straw came when I got home one day to find a tow truck pulling my car out of the driveway. I ran to stop them, furious, and the driver just shrugged. "HOA reported it as an abandoned vehicle, sir," he said, handing me the paperwork. "I'm just doing my job." I was beyond angry. This wasn't just petty harassment anymore. Karen was coming for my entire life. If she wanted a war, I was about to finish it once and for all. Setting the trap, I realized Karen's attacks were all coming through the HOA, which meant she had someone on the inside feeding her information or approving her nonsense complaints. If I wanted to beat her, I had to find out who her ally was and expose them both. I had a plan. Step 1. I filed a counter-complaint with the HOA claiming harassment and falsified reports. I requested a formal review of all recent complaints against me. Step 2. I installed a hidden security system, not just regular cameras, but motion-activated recording devices around my property. If Karen or anyone else came near my house, I would catch them red-handed. Step 3. I decided to test the system and bait Karen into making a mistake. I put out fake evidence that would make her lose her mind. On the community website, I posted photos of a brand new pool heater, an expensive model that clearly violated the HOA's approved appliance list. Of course, it was all fake and just some Photoshop magic, but I knew Karen wouldn't be able to resist. Sure enough, 3 days later, the HOA emailed me, urgent notice, unauthorized pool equipment, mandatory inspection required. Karen had taken the bait. The big reveal. When the HOA inspector arrived, I welcomed him with a smile. "Feel free to check," I said, knowing full well there was no illegal pool heater to find. He wandered around awkwardly while my hidden cameras captured everything, and that's when Karen slipped up. Just as the inspector was about to leave, Karen stormed into my yard, completely uninvited. "Check behind the pool deck," she snapped, her face flushed with anger. "I saw him install it myself." The inspector raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, homeowners aren't supposed to interfere with inspections," he said. I crossed my arms, playing it cool. "I think she's been spying on us again," I said. "Is that allowed under HOA policy?" Karen froze. She knew she had gone too far, but it was already too late. After the inspector left, I sent the footage of Karen trespassing directly to the HOA president. I didn't stop there. I also included a comprehensive file documenting every fake complaint, every petty attack, and her illegal partnership with the HOA secretary. Within 48 hours, the fallout began. Karen's downfall. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, and I made sure to attend, sitting right across from Karen, who looked like she had swallowed a lemon. The president didn't mince words. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, "we have received irrefutable evidence of harassment, trespassing, and misconduct. Effective immediately, you are removed from your position as head of the HOA Violation Committee." Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't do that," she sputtered. "Oh, we can," the president said firmly, "and as a result of your actions, the HOA will be refunding all fines issued under your supervision." He turned to me and smiled. "Mr. Johnson, you are cleared of all violations." I barely contained my grin. Victory. But I wasn't done with her yet. The ultimate payback. With Karen officially out of power, I had one last card to play. Remember the county zoning board? I sent them an anonymous tip about another violation. Karen's perfect backyard included an unregistered guest house that violated property codes. A month later, Karen was slapped with thousands of dollars in fines and ordered to tear it down. And as the demolition crew rolled up to her house, I made sure to enjoy the view from the comfort of my pool deck. These days, Karen keeps her distance. The new HOA board even passed a no-drone policy, a direct result of her spying. And every time I see her glare at me across the street, I just smile and wave. After all, she learned the hard way. Mess with me, and you'll pay the price. For a few glorious weeks, life was peaceful again. With Karen stripped of her HOA powers and her illegal guest house reduced to rubble, I thought I had finally seen the last of her antics. My wife and I spent our evenings by the pool, sipping iced tea and laughing about the chaos. We had survived. But as always, Karen wasn't done. I should have known she wouldn't go down without a fight. Losing her HOA position and paying thousands in fines wasn't enough to humble her. No, she wanted revenge, and she was about to take things to a whole new level. Karen's final scheme. It started subtly, too subtly for me to notice at first. One morning, I found a strange note taped to my front door. It was printed in bold letters. "Warning, your property may be in violation of local wildlife protection laws." At first, I thought it was just more of Karen's nonsense. But when I checked the HOA website, I found something that made my blood boil. A new rule had just been added. Homeowners may not disturb or remove any wildlife habitats on their property. Violations are subject to fines and potential legal action. I knew exactly who was behind this. Karen had lost her seat on the violation committee, but she still had friends on the HOA board. She was working behind the scenes to create new rules aimed directly at me. And her next move? Well, it was pure evil genius. The endangered species hoax. A week later, I woke up to the sound of voices in my backyard. When I looked outside, I saw 2 county environmental inspectors poking around my pool deck. I rushed outside. "Can I help you?" One of the inspectors, a tall guy with a clipboard, nodded. "We received an anonymous report about a possible endangered species habitat on your property. Mind if we take a look?" I blinked. "Endangered species? What are you talking about?" The other inspector pointed to a small patch of bushes near my fence. "These shrubs are common nesting areas for the western spotted lizard, a protected species under state law. If we find evidence of nesting, you'll need to halt any outdoor construction and comply with environmental protection orders." I nearly laughed. This had Karen written all over it. I hadn't touched those bushes in years, but I knew someone had been snooping around. Sure enough, when the inspectors left, I checked my security cameras, and there she was, Karen, sneaking onto my property late at night, planting fake lizard eggs in the bushes. I had caught her red-handed. But this time, I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to end this once and for all. Turning the tables permanently, I started by gathering evidence. I compiled a full dossier on Karen's activities, drone spying footage, illegal trespassing, caught on camera multiple times, planting fake, endangered evidence, her connection to the HOA board members. Once I had everything, I made 2 important calls. First, I called a real lawyer, not just for legal advice, but to prepare a formal cease and desist letter. I wanted Karen to know that if she so much as breathed in my direction again, I would take her to court. Second, I reached out to a local investigative journalist. See, Karen loved her reputation as the perfect HOA queen, but I had enough dirt to bury that reputation forever. The HOA implodes. When the cease and desist letter arrived, Karen didn't take it well. She stormed into the next HOA meeting, screaming about how I was destroying the community. But what she didn't know was I had brought backup. The investigative journalist was sitting quietly in the back, taking notes. And when the HOA board tried to sweep everything under the rug, I handed over my evidence packet and let the journalist do the rest. Within 2 weeks, the story broke. HOA scandal, corruption, harassment, and fake wildlife complaints rock local community. The fallout was glorious. Karen was permanently banned from holding any HOA-related position. The corrupt board members were forced to resign. Several homeowners, including me, were refunded thousands in wrongful fines. And best of all, the HOA was sued by multiple residents for harassment, leading to a major reform of its policies. Karen's reign of terror was officially over. My sweet revenge. With Karen out of the picture, I decided to have a little fun. I threw a massive pool party, and I made sure to invite every homeowner she had ever harassed. We celebrated late into the night, music blasting, while Karen watched bitterly from her now bare backyard. And for the grand finale, I bought a drone, a huge one. The next morning, I flew it right over Karen's house. Attached to the drone was a banner that read, "Smile, Karen, you're not in charge anymore." These days, the HOA is a peaceful place again. Karen keeps to herself. The new board actually helps the community, and my wife and I finally enjoy our home without interference. If there's one lesson I learned through all of this, it's simple. Never underestimate a homeowner who's had enough, and always keep your cameras rolling, because when an HOA Karen pushes too far, the best revenge is simple. Expose them, outsmart them, and watch them fall.